Which of the following conclusions could be most properly drawn from the information given to the left? So that's an inference question. We need to decide which one of these things must be true based on what the passage says. So the things that we have here is that we have crime goes down when lighting goes up. We also have that basically that this works, daytime visibility is worse in nations farther from the equator. So regulations would be more successful in averting crime there. So the further from the equator you are, the more darkness you have, so the more of an effect this increasing lighting would have on reducing crime. And then the final point is that the only nations that adopted such regulations are further from the equator than the continental United States. Okay, so we need to draw a conclusion from this. Can we conclude A, bystanders in the continental United States who were near lit streetlights during the day would be just as likely to become victims of a crime as would bystanders who were not near lit streetlights? This is not a conclusion we can draw. All we know is that things will be, that the only nations who have done stuff with this are further from the equator than the US. Nothing about lit streetlights versus not lit streetlights. B, inadequate daytime visibility is the single most important factor in street crime in numerous nations that are located farther from the equator than is the continental United States. This certainly is something that the passage hints at, but we don't actually know that it's the single most important factor. This is a little bit too extreme, and there's nothing in the passage that indicates that. C, in nations that have daytime streetlight regulations, the percentage of street crime that happens in the daytime is greater than in the continental United States. Do we know that there's more crime there? Again, there's this hint that it would be more effective because it's darker further from the equator, but we don't know that the percentage of street crime that happens in the daytime is greater than the US. That's not an inference that we can draw because there's not evidence for that. All we know is that it's darker more often. D, nations that have daytime streetlight regulations probably have less incidents of street crime annually than occur within the continental United States. Again, this is a comparison we definitely can't make, which leaves us only choice E. Daytime streetlight regulations would probably do less to avert street crime in the continental United States than they do in nations that have the regulations. Why would this be true? All of the nations that have the regulations currently are farther from the equator. The nations farther from the equator have less daylight, and so there's more time every day that these streetlight regulations can take effect. Therefore, if this regulation were put in the US, it would have less of an effect because the US is not as far from the equator. Choice E.